We have returned here at the Rainbow Six North American League. That's right. Welcome back to the desk. Your host, Doa here, along with Caliber, Jacob, Jesse, J. Chick, and from the Sonics organization, lead analyst, Joe Bro, joining us for the week. It's been a ton of fun, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, it's been a lot.
Well,
I've learned a lot.
And that last game.
Yeah, I had already let it go.
sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up. I realized what I said, and I had to clarify.
The mask slipped instantly.
It happened. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at our standings here as they have shaken out throughout the day. We've seen a lot of movement, but so far, XSET's still on top, just barely able to get the overtime win over Sonics, but that does bring Sonics up to second place, so not too bad.
Fun fact, if the Sonics had been able to win that round 15, it still would have been 1-2 like this, because the Sonics wouldn't have had a big enough round differential to get up into first place, but still, this looks like a very, very solid top four. If you had to end the stage right now, put them all to Berlin, I'm pretty confident that we'd still be able to run the table in from NA.
You know what? And seeing this, I actually feel a little bit better because I had forgotten where the standings were. I forgot that TSM lost earlier. I forgot that Oxygen's going to lose right now. So, like, I actually feel pretty good about
predictions
where we are. Yeah.
Yeah, XSET hasn't really breaking away from the pack. A whole 2-point lead, the most we've seen all stage. Calm down, XSET.
TSM had that 3-point lead for a little while. Yeah.
Well, where did that get them? Exactly.
Well, I mean,
a breakaway? Never. Not in my NAL.
They're down in fourth. People have caught up, but still, there's only a 4-point difference between first and ninth. You know, so still, again, the tightest stage that I think we've had in a long time.
As opposed to the 3-point lead we had from 2 days ago. Like, yeah.
Expanding.
Super tight. Well, let's talk about our next series. It's going to be Astralis versus Oxygen. This is going to be another one that's going to be good, going to be hard to predict unless your name is Joe, apparently, who has already decided that Astralis is going to win this. Now, Astralis a little bit farther down the standing as we take a look at the tail of the tape, but they are still going to be a major challenge for Oxygen, I think.
Lots of history between these two teams.
Oh, yeah.
Charlotte Major semifinals rematch. Oxygen were deflated in that game. They were not themselves. They had a horrible performance. Ended up losing 7-1, 7-3 in the semis against Astralis. They're hoping for something a little bit better today.
Yeah, that game was just an absolute deflator. Like, we were even shocked as while we were watching and thinking, has this game even started yet? Hey, good practice, Grim. Now start the actual match. Like, that was what everyone's general feeling was from that game. And it's the kind of thing where OXG got hit so hard and so fast, they didn't even know what by. Obviously, we're back in best of one, so it should feel a little bit more like old hat. But if you look at their attack and defensive ratings, OXG is only one above Astralis in both categories by 1 place, and they're also 4 positions above. So still, this could go either way. It's incredibly close.
I agree. And I mean, you have to take into account, too, the kind of reactivated Iconic over on the Astralis side, you know, finally putting up a pretty great day yesterday, and that adds another threat that was kind of lacking a little bit on the Astralis side of things up until then. And so if he shows up again today, could be very difficult for Oxygen. But again, like, the thing is, the standings are kind of meaningless at this point because anyone is really capable of beating anyone unless you're unless you're a Mirage, rather, of course. You know, so the fact that like Astralis is way down the standings right now doesn't really matter too much, does it?
I wouldn't say so, and I think that Astralis coming back again with the full power of their roster unlocked again, and I think after the slow start that Oxygen had against Mirage yesterday, I actually think that Astralis are looking really like revamped and reinvigorated, and Oxygen are just kind of like a question mark.
Well, we've talked about it a little bit, but let's dive a little bit deeper into Astralis now. I think, for me personally, the big thing that I've been thinking about is Iconic, right?
Yes.
Coming back up, having a great performance. There have been other people that have been playing pretty well. Like you mentioned, though, Joe, as well, this is a squad that hasn't been able to play to its full potential the entire stage.
Yeah, and being able to have DP Fire back healthy again, I think it just allows Iconic to play how Iconic wants to play, because DP Fire will get kills on his own, and Iconic doesn't have to manufacture those.
Yeah, I thought that Iconic was catching some of the roamers really well yesterday against Dark Zero, you know, catching a lot of those entry picks that he was able to find for his team. Of course, he's the classic Finka main that we like to see all over the NAL, but he does it very, very well. The problems I had with Iconic prior to yesterday were sometimes on the roam he would play these really important operators like a zombie, operators like smoke, operators that get a lot of value late in the round, and he would still play very aggressive positions, and he would die sometimes without even firing a shot. So I'm hoping we see Iconic play a little bit more passive on the defense. He was doing a good job, had some late late clutches yesterday against DZ that really did help secure a couple of those rounds. It was the one that actually ended up forcing them to overtime. So I do think that, avoiding overtime, I should say. I do think Iconic is back. I'm not worried about him anymore this stage because he's been so consistent throughout his career, and now after a good game yesterday, he's ready to play.
Yeah, but for Astralis overall, they've just made trades a priority. They're one of those teams along with Xset that feel like if there's one player that's pushing a particular room, they're going to have somebody else right there to challenge it in the event that there is somebody there, or they're hunting down by drones. They're just finding a way to clear as effectively as possible and make sure that whenever they head towards and execute, they're not doing it a man down, surprisingly, and without knowing that there was somebody there. That kind of aggressive, flexible playstyle has always been an Astralis trademark, but it's been the kind of thing that it's jumped to the forefront of everyone's minds when they took first place in stage 1, when they made the run that they did at the major. It's the kind of thing that whenever you see it, you have to lock in and realize exactly how perfect they've gotten this formula down. Best part is they can use the past 2 weeks kind of almost as like makeshift scrims, so to speak. Yes, it's the best kind of practice you're ever going to get, but if you're not going to be able to do it with your full team up or in the environment that you want, there's still some good things to be gained from that.
You know, when I look at Astralis, I think more than any other team in NAL right now, this is the team I want to get another shot at a major, because obviously they came as close as you can possibly come to winning one, in that they went all the way to map number 5 against Dark Zero before dropping it in the end. So this is a team, again, that they've been a little bit up and down the stage, but I'm confident that if they get back to a major, they'll be able to sort of like show us what they would have done last time, which is, I think they got a chance to win it if they make it back.
Absolutely. I mean, they played so well in Charlotte. Their attacks were insane, and like, sure, you can't last 5 maps against Dark Zero. Who can, right? DZ have so much resilience. They thrive when games go long, and you know, that was a tough one for a team who had just gotten to their first LAN. But I agree, Astralis, one more shot, I'm here for it.
Yeah. You know, now another team I wouldn't mind seeing another shot at a major title is our team on the other side of the arena over in Vegas. It's Oxygen. Now, this is a team that's super exciting to watch. They are known as sort of the total package team. They're good at basically everything. But as we've seen this stage, they still need to find those points to, I think, really, really excel and really exceed expectations rather than just sort of meet them.
Yeah, and looking at Oxygen, they're by no means a bad team. I think right now Vertical is struggling, and Newers has to kind of fill that void. But for me, yesterday, starting slow against Mirage, they cannot afford that today.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. They started slow against Mirage. I don't really care. Because listen, I mean, I don't think they were playing like themselves. I think after the TAC timeout, they kind of shook themselves free of that and they played fine. Yeah. I think the fact that they threw 3 rounds at the start against a team that they were basically always going to beat is not a problem, and I don't think it worries me here. Sure, if that starts the same thing against Astralis, that's like, okay, what's going on? But I don't think it's going to happen against an opponent that I assume Oxygen are going to show a little bit more respect. I assume Oxygen are going to, you know, give it their all from the very start. I assume we're not going to need Redeemer to step in after round 3 and be like, guys, play for reals, please. We're losing. Because this is just a different circumstance and a different opponent they're going up against today.
I'm also not worried because they're not really historically a cafe team. They've played it 3 times ever since the start of stage 1. It's not something that they're very keen on going to if the opportunity itself ever arises, which means whatever you might have shown on a map like that, unless you get into a crazy best of 3 scenario, which would require making playoffs at a major to do in Rainbow Six, then you're not going to ever worry about playing cafe in a best of 1 in a serious manner, so there's not all that much to go back and learn from unless you end up being their opponents in a group stage. So I doubt we're going to see it here. So in that Mirage game, in spite of throwing those first 3 rounds, nothing about yesterday is something that you really have to concern yourselves with if you're a Mirage player, support staff, or even a fan. Those first 3 rounds are concerning, but what did they do at the end of the day? They still got all 3 points, so who cares?
Yeah, I mean, and you know you can give Mirage some rounds right now and still be confident that you can come back and win, but you cannot treat Astralis the same way. I do not think they will. I obviously think they're going to be coming this one with the utmost seriousness. Look at those game faces. Obviously they are. But I've been told we know the bans. We know the map we're going to. So let's find out where the battle will be fought here in our 4th game of the day.
Again, in the major, it was Oregon and Skyscraper we ended up on. Skyscraper going to be the first one banned from Oxygen. That makes a lot of sense as one that Astralis have a 3-game win streak on. They're so dominant. And of course, that win over Oxygen and Xset that they had in the playoffs at Charlotte Major will solidify that ban. Then we get Chalet coming through as a ban for Astralis. This is a map that, you know, they played it once in stage 3 all way back in the day, once in stage 1, you know, lost to Oxygen. So that was one that they want to get off the table. They don't want to have to play it here. Then we get Bank coming through from Astralis for their next ban. And you look at Oxygen's performance on Bank historically, and this has been one that they played back-to-back in week 2. Not often you see a team watch an opponent play a map back-to-back and think, nah, instead of counter-striking that, we're just going to get rid of it. Usually they kind of use that as VOD fodder and try to use that, but not for Astralis.
All right, last couple of bans here. We have Villa Cafe, Oregon. So Oregon's interesting again because Oxygen played Astralis at the major and lost 7-1. So they didn't want to run that back. But Theme Park.
Theme Park, baby.
Spicy.
All right, so here's a spicy fact for you. Both teams are undefeated. Since this map got put back into the map pool at the start of this season, they have not lost it. Both Astralis and Oxygen have played it in stage 1. This stage at the Charlotte Major still have yet to lose it. It's undefeated streak against undefeated streak going back 4 months on this map in this matchup here.
Wow, we're going to have a winner today, though.
We will. We will need to have a winner. We will need to have a loser.
A lightning strike
I have
would
a
hit
gift for the
ESA,
obvious.
and it means that we wouldn't be able to finish the match.
I mean, you
We
never
could
know.
have an infinite weather delay, and they'd both maintain their undefeated streaks on this
You
map.
never know. We are at the mercy of technology and game clients sometimes. So you never know. But I've got a feeling, I'm confident we're going to have a winner at the end of this one. But it's time to pick that winner, or at least pick who we think is going to be that winner. First, we're going to talk to our casters for our predictions. Blue and Stokes are over there, thinking it over. Another tough one. I feel like they're all tough ones.
We always get the tough ones, it seems. But,
Everybody gets the tough ones.
yeah, but this one, I mean, again, it's like such a tough battle. We have so many like good players on both of these teams too.
Yeah.
And as Jacob was describing, it's a map that both of these teams have excelled on recently. So where do you go? It's really just a coin flip, I think, for me at the end of the day. But I'm feeling a little bit of an edge towards Oxygen right now, so I'm going to be putting my vote with them.
Say, that's my job, is to flip the coin. You can do it.
You know, I think it's kind of like, when you have your own kids, right? You're going to tell them, I don't have a favorite, but you really do. And mine just so happens to be Astralis. I think both of these teams are great, but I think Astralis are back to form. And even though it is Theme Park, there's still a very major consideration that Astralis take it here.
Well, I think you're both right. Casters divided again, but honestly,
Wait a minute.
it's hard to call either one wrong at this point. I think they're both good choices. So that brings us to our analysts. We'll check in with our casters again in a little bit. But what do you think? Let's start with you, Jacob.
Do you have to?
Yeah,
Fine.
I've decided this. I get to make these decisions.
It's
as a
enough
host.
of a 50-50 that I asked myself, if we were on round 15 and it's 7-7, who do I trust more? Now, that takes a lot of context out of the equation. How did the game go before? Was somebody having a good game or a bad game? What's the site? How have they done so far? And I know that. But if I had to put trust in anybody, I would put trust in a full-strength Astralis over the current version of OXG that we've seen so far for this stage. So I think if they're back at full form, which it looked like they were yesterday against DZ, I'll take them here.
All right, so that's another one for Astralis. Anyone want to, tie things up with a pick for Oxygen?
Major
No, I'm going Astralis. Vibes win games. Astralis have the vibes right now.
All right.
They take it.
I believe I'm right on Joe's tail on the prediction percentage there. So let me take a leap here, try to get back up into first place. Let's go for Oxygen. I think that they've been playing really well. I thought Laxing had a great game yesterday, and Astralis, I just don't know if they'll have it this time. They did beat them at the major, but I think this is going to be a new form for Oxygen.
You know what? I have something that might help you here. We both have the same prediction.
Oh, God.
I will try to help him a little bit. Rock, paper, scissors, winner changes their prediction.
All right. That's the one.
all right.
Sorry, loser changes their
Okay, yeah,
prediction.
loser
Oh, I was
changes.
going to say
Okay.
winner, yeah.
Is it rock, paper, scissors, shoot?
On shoot,
Okay.
best of 3.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. 1. Rock, paper, scissors.
It's the best of 3?
And there we
Oh!
go. Change his prediction.
What?
Change
Okay.
it.
That's not fair.
Do it.
That's not fair at
There's
all.
no way now.
The Uno reverse card has
It's
been
that
played.
close.
I'm
It's
not
that close.
scammed,
Fanboy. Sorry,
bro.
Astralis.
This might end up
switch
working
it.
out for you, though.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. So we got 2 and 3. Let's see what the coin says. It's going to be heads, Astralis. It's going to be tails, Oxygen. Oh, it is heads, Astralis. The coin likes Iconic. The coin likes everyone else, obviously, on there as well.
Another dead
Yeah.
even split, just like last game.
Exactly. Should be
it
dead
is.
even. Fan vote will break the tie. Let's see what Twitter had to say. It was very close, I'm told. 51
makes sense.
to 49%, but it is going to be Oxygen that takes it in the end. So slight Oxygen favor for the prediction, but as we've seen time and time again this stage, that doesn't really matter a whole lot. It comes down to who performs better in the map, as it should, of course. Before we get to that map, though, let's check out that community poll. Your question to consider is, which team is hotter?
Oh my God.
Astralis or Oxygen? All right.
I mean, come
I had to
on.
write these. Again,
on.
take that as you will.
Okay, this is actually a Stokes moment of picking between your two kids and not being able to decide. Like,
Never mind.
no comment.
Never mind. No, nothing more needs to be said. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will see who is able to gain victory in this battle between Astralis and Oxygen. Going to be great. Don't miss it. Rainbow Six NAL returns in just a few.
When you wish to be free, you look up to the sky and call on me. Let me put color in your sky, take away the gray. Turn the roof to a floor on a Saturday. Up it tall and tonight you do what I say. I'm just a getaway, I'm just your getaway. I'll make you warm if it's chilly and I probably make you say things you wouldn't do normally. I'm like a 9-to-5 job that you work for me. I'm your getaway, 'cause you can get away. Let me put color in your sky, take away the gray. Turn the roof to a floor on a Saturday. Up it tall and tonight you do what I say. I'm just a getaway, I'm just your getaway. I'll make you warm if it's chilly and I probably make you say things you wouldn't do normally. I'm like a 9-to-5 job that you work for me. I'm your getaway, 'cause you can get away. Whoa, that money clip us now, the new now looks like. Whoa, upgrade her diamonds, now her girlfriends are like. Whoa, I hit recorded drop, you can't ignore it. I'm transforming now these cars and planes, I'm always boarding. Just out touring down in Charlotte like I play for Hornets. When I'm performing, never boring, now you can't afford it.
I'm Newers, and this is the NAL.
Welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the NAL. Time to get ready for our next matchup here. Just like most of our matches in this entire stage, it's bound to be a close one. No, we're not just telling you that to keep you interested, ladies and gentlemen. Both these teams have a flawless record on the map that we are about to play, but only one of them can keep it here today by finding another victory. Unfortunately, the loser has to have that streak broken. Will it be the new guns or the old guns with a new player joining them, of course, for this season in Oxygen versus Astralis here. Let's get into it. Let's start talking about what can come out from this match. The main thing we want to start out from the Astralis side, at least, is Iconic having a much better showing in yesterday's matchup here. Won't sugarcoat it, he's been having a rough go of it in the first few weeks of play for Stage 2, but yesterday was a potential sign of a turnaround in that department, which could be very bad news for Oxygen if we get that good Iconic today.
Yeah, an incredible game up against Dark Zero yesterday, dropping 15 and 6, a cost of 83%, and a rating of 1.68. So amazing gameplay from him. Also, got to mention that KPR as well, as he pulled through in a huge way, a 1.25. So high expectations for Iconic coming in here for Theme Park. And not only that, but what John was touching on earlier, if y'all at home did not know, both of these teams, perfect record when it comes to this map. Astralis, 4 wins, Oxygen, 5 wins in a row for both respectively. So as you said, something has to give. One of these teams is going to be walking away with a new loss in that department here for Theme Park. And how are these fans going to go? Well, Astralis is going to start us off here for Theme, and they're going to remove Nomad, such a strong pick when it comes to Theme that allows you to lock up a lot of different portions of the map and make it a lot easier for you to work, maybe the verticality or a different angle that you want to leave somebody on. So great ban there for Astralis Nook for a lot of different reasons, not exactly the same as Nomad, just a very sneaky op that can work her way through cameras and everything else in between. Has the frag grenades as well, so just makes it easy for her to be worked in, as we'll be switching over to the defensive bans, and Mira will be removed for one of the first times today.
Yep, Mira, as an operator, we've been seeing banned out a little bit less in the past few weeks because of the prominence of Azami, of course. That's been opening up some play for her. Still a good chance we'll end up seeing Azami get banned out, of course. A lot of teams are choosing to go that route right now. It's going to be up to Astralis whether they want to or not, and they're certainly taking their... Forrest even just finishing my sentence for me there. A little weird. But yeah, they're going to take their time with this one. And they'll end up banning Valkyrie, which means that Azami is going to be left in play here yet again. That's been a bit of a trend here today.
Yeah, and I mean, past that, the thing about this is that Astralis are going to have the ability to bring literally every piece of utility when it comes to denial for throwables. So you might be seeing a Jaeger and some other things work in here. We have the Mai as of right now and the Azami, so expect Jane Hino to be applying some of those discs around those barriers and make it a lot more difficult for Oxygen to clear out those locations. But past that, Astralis are going to start things off downstairs inside of Throne Room, the most defendable spot in all of Theme Park to start us off here. And Oxygen are looking to bring a pretty overall lineup, really. But you obviously do have that one general sense of direction that you get when you look at this lineup, and it's the info game. Dokkaebi and Jackal both coming in here, just trying to make sure that they can confirm the clear and make sure a lot of the parts on this top floor have been taken care of and squared away. We'll just have to see how this goes. Obviously, Oxygen's going to have a couple of different ways that they can go about this. Can go for cafeteria, can start things off on cash, but Astralis is good for most of it as they have a setup across this entire top floor.
Two of the Goyo canisters going to be committed to the outside of Cafe as well, so a huge emphasis from Astralis on trying to deny any action from that side of the map. They'll place the third one on the outside of Cash to try and extend the amount of time that Oxygen will need to clear this out as well. So delay is the name of the game for the defense to counter out the intel that the attackers are going to try and bring into the fold here. Still going to see Oxygen play directly into that Cafe setup to start things off, and in huge majority as well. Everyone except for Fox stacked up over here looking to get the clear, but we are going to see players start to split out a little bit from this position, so there will be some room for variety in a few moments' time.
Contention here from Iconic, but nothing happening in between the two squads just yet. Newers will continue to hold his position here inside of Cafe. Astralis awaiting the arrival of the remaining members of Oxygen as they haven't propelled themselves too far forward just yet. It's going to be a call sign for Iconic to pop one of these Goyo canisters as he hears some noise from Oxygen inside of Cafe. Laxing has actually worked his way in here to support Newers as well. Has some nice cross angles that he can use here through Daycare to try and take down a few of the red players. Out for Iconic, just awaiting still for the Oxygen move. Haven't been doing too much on Cafe. They're actually shifting gears and starting to work their way over towards this east side as they eye down Cash.
Oxygen still starting to set themselves up. In fact, not for Cash. They'll transition down below that a little bit further too and go for the drum entry to start things out here. Forrest will, of course, hear this and be able to clip off just a tad bit of damage against Newers, one that he will immediately negate out by activating his first Adrenal Surge here. About 2 minutes gone from the round, and Oxygen only just now starting to establish site presence. And here's going to be the big issue you can see on top of Forrest right now as well. Oxygen quickly crunching out his position, but the good news is he'll get some support, I believe, by Dragon Door there. J9 will be able to take out Newers, eliminating him from the fight here and stopping the forward momentum from Oxygen. DP Fire also set up to counter the hop-in from Dragon, but instead it's going to be Dream that wins out the fight. Only for Forrest to trade one out a moment later, and Laxing again reactivates things. It's going to be a huge chain of kills. Neither team can get control over this situation, but Astralis does have the edge by one player as we come down to the last 40 seconds.
They have to get into the site, and this info will assist them, but there's so many players still around the entire map that could get a pretty impactful flank off, but for Iconic, it doesn't seem like it's going to work out just yet unless Oxygen want to try and throw themselves over towards the complete opposite side of the map. They're working on Dragon. He's over towards Barrels, but he can transition through this top floor as well and still try and get in behind them. Dream knows somebody has to be playing this throne side. He'll pre-fire for the corner, but he's taken down from Forrest. That's going to be the case as well, and Vertical has to hop too. He'll take down one, but Iconic is awaiting him inside of Split, but it won't even be Iconic to take him down. Instead, it's Shuttle and Astralis with an amazing hold across the entirety of this map. I mean, Oxygen didn't even get an entry frag until, and I'm not kidding, 2 minutes and 5 seconds into this round, and they didn't even have a person in the building just yet. The only person that we had jump in was the Jackal pretty late on into that, and they were only downstairs inside of stalls. So with that being said, Oxygen have 0 foothold across the entire map to actually get any serious pressure onto Astralis. Yeah, you can try and fight them from the windows, but they're just going to fall back deeper into the building, and you have nobody there to try and support that. So it makes it to where Oxygen really can't do anything, minus take some of these early engagements and try and get it in towards the site, but obviously that doesn't work out for them. Too much damage already dealt from the roam game of Astralis, and no answer leads to the first round going to AST.
So Astralis surge ahead with that first round safely in their pocket. Going to try and see if they can negotiate another one on the other downstairs site over here in the lab. Not necessarily the go-to second site for a lot of teams, but in this case, it's where Astralis want to play it out. This map's a bit of an open book with regards to how teams tend to rotate at the moment. No preset kind of winning strategies we oftentimes see on some of the other maps. So it's open for interpretation. We'll see Astralis head downstairs here. A lot of trap ops coming into play for this round as well. Not only do we get the Legion being played out by DP Fire, but the Ella also going to come out from Iconic too. So looking to try and catch a few of these Oxygen members unawares and also give that great freedom to the defenders to continue being able to rotate around the map.
Huge fan of Astralis' defensive lineup at the current moment, especially with Malusi getting thrown in there as well. This is all to slow down Oxygen. As soon as they jump in here, I'm fairly certain that there's going to be more than just that Banshee in the way, but we'll have to see. It's an EE1D in, and J90 is going to start adjusting this Yokai drone. Hasn't been able to stop the plant yet, and Dream's already halfway through this, so I highly doubt that really anything else is going to happen from AST, and no, it's not. Oxygen are going to hop inside of the bathroom. All of this utility actually in the wrong spot. They layered it across the whole map, and the one soft spot being stalls where there's a lone Banshee in the way of Oxygen getting a plant down and decimating 4 Astralis members. It's all down to DP Fire, but I highly doubt he gets too far down this path.
So Astralis overplay themselves a bit in this scenario here. They're going to end up, unfortunately, spreading their assets a bit too thinly and allow for Oxygen to have an easy path into the site. Very easy as far as they're concerned, too. Only losing 1 player really along the way here. They clean up shop and quickly tie the game up at 1-1, meaning we're probably not going to see a reattempt on that site. Actually, I might be wrong about that. Coming in from Astralis is, yeah, they still have Lab soft-locked right now, but we'll get confirmation of that in a second.
I mean, hell, I'd do the same thing and be like, all right, listen, we're putting a Grismod above that window. the Banshee is getting moved. You're going to have to try harder to frag it next time. You know, there's a couple of different things they can definitely do with that space, but Oxygen's going to be happy as a clan that they got that one to go off without a hitch, because that's one of those one-and-done situations, not one that you're, you know, going to do even again on the offensive side. You might do it inside of overtime if it comes down to it eventually, but you never want to, you know, overplay your hand when it comes to a rush like that. But very decisive there from Oxygen. That's why that went off so very well, especially with the recognition of what was going on inside of the stalls area. So now for Astralis, they have to attempt this yet again here. It's going to be a very similar setup, especially with the lineup being the exact same. But how do they deal with this bathroom setup? We already talked about how they can definitely adjust some utility over there, but they might keep some eyes on in this situation as well.
So Oxygen are going to be spawning out here across the board.
Imagine.
We'll see them.
Just imagine they just do it all over again, right through the window.
Doubt we're going to get that. We'll have to wait and see exactly what Oxygen tries to set themselves up towards. I'm certain they're probably going to at least check it to see if it'll be as obviously easy to access as it was on the previous round, but fully pulling the trigger on going forward again, that would be the real surprise here. But as I say that, we do see a pretty open amount of pushing territory here to work their way in from the lab itself, so might be an opportunity brewing yet if this team has the confidence to commit to it, but we'll have to follow that up later on in the round and see if there potentially is going to be an opportunity. Other than that, though, it seems like Oxygen clearing things out upstairs with relative ease. They'll be working on getting access to the cafe in just a moment and try to push their position further beyond that.
Well, Oxygen is practically already telling us what they want to do with the map, just given the operator lineup. They really want to take control of this top floor and abuse Sledge as well as Buck to break up a lot of the flooring and make it not impossible to actually play on the site. So we'll see how well they can accomplish this, as they'll pressure back some of the Astralis members. They've got control of cafeteria, but obviously that's a far cry from the entirety of the control on this top floor. A shuttle is inside of arcade, so we'll be able to play this this out. Does have some support still from Forrest, as he'll duck his head back in from waiting. Has to worry about the hatch, but he really should be worrying about these Cafe players. Doesn't have a single reinforcement to his side either, so that entire quad wall is up for Oxygen's taking when it comes to gunfire through into Daycare. Iconic's also going to take some heat, and this is going to lead us halfway through this round as Astralis continues to flirt with OXG inside a Cafe.
Forrest getting some soft pings to try and send those through the wall, but obviously not going to make the impact. Still, he'll try to play off of them when he self-pings himself here. See if maybe there's an opportunity to line up some intel on these players further back in a Cafe, but nothing making itself too obvious. Tries to play off the tracers there, but not going to find it, and now directly challenging Noors in the open. When he finally moves from behind the Cafe desk, he's going to fall to him, unfortunately, here. Foxe also strikes true with another entry in the favor of Oxygen. Finally, J9O will be able to battle it back, but Noors once again making up the difference for our attackers, bringing it down to just Shuttle and J9O in a 2v4. Good news is there's only 40 seconds left, so maybe hope yet for Oxygen, but it's going to be bleak as we continue to see the members of Oxygen work their way in without too much of an issue here. J9O, the only one left in a 1v4 here. He's going to be pushed into a corner. Not much room for him to play the rest of this out. He'll try to flick onto Laxing there. He's got the right timing for it, just not the right crosshair placement. So Laxing knocks him out, and Oxygen take control of the lead with a 2-1 advantage.
Yeah, super unfortunate there for Astralis. They're able to delay Oxygen for so very long on the top floor, but eventually they'd kind of get to this moment where they decide enough is enough, and they really want to take some gunfights. And unfortunately enough for that circumstance, they lose them and immediately lose the top floor because of it. This makes it so fairly easy for Oxygen to transition this into a site take instead. And I mean, past that, Astralis still having a moment there where, you know, there's at least a very considerable time for them to actually end up winning that round because of Shuttle's position inside a bathroom. But unfortunately enough for him, he loses out the engagement as Buck hops installs window. So with that being said, Oxygen pull ahead 2-1 off of back-to-back lab wins. And let's see if they pull ahead here inside of the social media post here as well, the social media poll. And in fact, Oxygen will end up winning at 64% to 36 on which team is hotter. But I mean, that is actually kind of going to make a little bit of sense, obviously, with Oxygen pretty hot to trot at the current moment.
Yeah, as they take control of the two follow-up rounds, I should say, to the opener. Astralis able to negotiate one for themselves at the beginning in throne room, but have been unable to find anything since then. And surprisingly enough, they just unlocked it for play on this round, but they're going to choose not to go back to it, instead going for the initiation hold, wanting to test the full breadth of their rotation more than likely before they go back onto something that they know has already worked for them, and is essentially, unless we see an adjustment from Oxygen, going to be in Astralis' minds, easy points. For Oxygen, though, they'll start the clear here over on Dragon's side and begin to try and move forward from there.
Yes, indeed. We lead off now with Forrest inside of bathroom upstairs. Nobody on the receiving end, though, when it comes to Cash Balcony. Instead, Oxygen currently on the roof, but working the main hatch to actually drop into the top of yellow stairs and try and contest in a different way. Speaking of contesting, DP Fire, pretty aggressive angle he's holding towards Cafe, but he'll start to back off as he does have a deployable shield to play off of around this rotation he's made. Be able to get rid of Fox's camera, but Fox is already aware that he's there, so he doesn't really have to pay too much more attention to that, but he will be able to reconfirm and get this drone back in this space as you'll see the smoke. You can see Oxygen want to go about this in a very quick manner, stuns in to make sure that there's no ADSs there as we await Oxygen's fairly early execution.
DP Fire ready for the challenge, gets a Toxic Babe out, and the hesitation from Oxygen is going to mean they suffer from it slightly. At least one player choking on that gas as Vertical goes down. Just a tad of HP, though, not a huge loss at the end of the day. It's more important here at this point that Oxygen is able to preserve that HP and be able to use it a little bit later on in the round to push their way back in. Fox in the meanwhile here going to open up opportunity through the hatch, actually chucking the Candela into here, blinding out the players a little bit further into this defensive setup and maybe leaving a window open for Oxygen to finally swing themselves forward. Unfortunately, hasn't worked out too well. His team is still struggling to get that control they very much want to have, but again, they've also got a little bit of extra time here to back up and rethink the strategy, which appears to be the current plan from Oxygen.
Yeah, this has just been made so very awkward, and in fact, Oxygen, they're rotating all the way across the top roof right now. Apparently they saw something that they didn't exactly like what was going on over there for Daycare and everything else, but now they're going to have to try and clear out everything else for Astralis to set up. I really don't like this, John. This is just so off on time
it's too
right
late,
now.
yeah.
Exactly. Oxygen coming over here and trying to reinsert themselves. They're just trying to ask Astralis to really give them pieces to this puzzle instead of taking it themselves. And I mean, now they'll be able to take initiation, but they're going to need some more out of this situation. Obviously, since it is initiation, if they're able to take him down, they can get this plant. Some big plays here, and actually won't be able to win it out on the cross. Iconic with some very big kills, but now it's all down just to DP fire, and Oxygen are actually going to get it done off the back of those Candelas. It was a little worrisome there for just a moment, but they're able to get it done via the flashes. Sweating bullets there for some time as that M590 was literally moments away from being the decider for Astralis.
Yeah, very well-deserved celebration coming out from the OXG camp there, though, as, like we said, that was way too late of a time period to try and change up the strategy and suddenly go for a full push into control, following it up into initiation. But regardless, they're able to make it work off of their flash utility and the kind of lack of a reaction, at least initially, that we got from the Astralis camp. They're way too slow to try and catch that or mitigate the control into initiation, and as a result of that, Oxygen were able to use what they did get to bully their way into the site and knock out the remnants of the Astralis defense.
I mean, a huge shout out to Foxay there, because without him, that round is totally Astralis's. I mean, Candela after LMG kill there for him, and able to put Oxygen into a much stronger lead now as they lead 3-1. Looking to adjust things away from Zof. Back onto the Yawnet here for Vertical as well. Laxing will continue to bring this line, so we'll try and lock up some of the positioning from Astralis at a later date. They'll be bringing, well, EDDs for their sake when it comes down to it, to try and slow down Oxygen's take and hopefully get some extra damage off on them earlier on. Now, just to remind you, this is going to be a throne hold, and the last time that we saw Astralis go for this, they did it in a pretty strong fashion, I would say, as they were able to maintain control of the entire building down to the wire, where we finally saw the Jackal move in, but even then, not too much coming from that as they had to throw themselves at the site in the dying moments.
So J90 going to move himself forward here, continuing to open up a few rotation options for him to use upstairs before he gets flushed down. Assuming that's even going to happen, as Oxygen putting a pretty hefty priority on the downstairs clear right now here with Vertical, as you can see, already at the door to drum, or Gong rather, ready to move himself forward deeper into the map. But where is support going to be, and will they be appropriately positioned to help him out this time? We're also going to have some interesting operators of note here. Big pickup is going to be Iconic switching over to the cap can, adding those EDDs, and maybe Oxygen forcing them to think twice about those kind of switched up executes that we saw towards the end of the last round. We'll see if the EDDs catch anything, of course, later on, as at the moment Oxygen is moving way too slowly. I'd be very surprised if it made any serious impact here.
You can see the delay already working out in a certain way for Astralis. So a lot of time when it comes to the round overall, but with the pickup onto Laxing, things suddenly just got easier. You had some pretty major damage to J90, but nothing really got to worry about too much. Oh, a nice challenge from DP Fire, but immediately eviscerated from Newers. Frag grenade prepped and ready to deliver, but it's not going to find too much over inside of waiting. Oxygen able to at least negotiate for a kill, but they're going to need a little bit more in order to transition this into an armory take.
Oxygen now with that opening kill that they needed, and some good pepper damage going on to both Shuttle and J90. Should not have a whole lot to fear when it comes to trying to set themselves up for the execute. Still need to be worried about these specific players despite the damage that was done to them. Obviously, Oxygen is not necessarily going to know the damage that was done, so those players will still be a bit of a threat here to the assault. Regardless, though, Vertical is able to negotiate a kill against Iconic that removes the cap can from play. Keep in mind, again, you still have those two fairly injured players, so now Forrest is really the only one that can take an outright fight. The remaining two are going to have to rely on off angles in order to get themselves kills, but that's going to work to some extent here. Newers able to trade out both of his fallen teammates in the process of clearing out those two players, though, leaves it down into a 1v2 with Forrest against the world, as Dream and Newers going to have to take him down.
This is extremely doable. The only thing Astralis would have really have wanted is to kill Dream. If they could have limited the amount of area that they're able to work with, then it would have made things a lot easier for Forrest, but now he's been discovered in behind the bomb chassis, and honestly, I don't think that he knows that that drone exists, and he doesn't. He didn't hear it in behind him. Newers will pick him up instead as the yellow pings come through, and Oxygen guarantee themselves an advantage going into their defensive end.
So let's see now if Oxygen can lock in a massive lead at what would be 5 rounds in their favor, or if Astralis now going to try and bring things back under their own control. It'll be the upstairs hold to potentially decide it here for Astralis as they'll go over towards a bunk and daycare site. They'll try and hold on to this one. Not going to see any huge departure from the operator lineups we've been traditionally getting for Astralis, although Wamai will be added in here for J9O as one little small shift up from things we have been previously seeing.
Yes, indeed. And overall, the strategy for Astralis, it's been pretty sound, but Oxygen have been able to punch holes in a lot of their different setups, especially when it came to lab. A lot of different situations where Astralis were overplaying the situation, especially initially, just not having an answer to the rush from Oxygen inside of stalls that really caught them off guard. And to be honest with you, ever since that moment, AST hasn't been able to recover. It's been Oxygen all the way since then. And this round, yet again, is going to present some things that they're not exactly used to working around, with this Monty coming in for the very first time. It's always interesting to me to see Vertical play a shield out of everybody, by the way.
Yeah, especially when you consider his kind of like just clutch capability.
How insane Vertical is at video games.
That also to some extent makes sense too, because the Montaigne has to be careful of things like flanks and whatnot. And if they rely on Vertical's like game sense for a lot of his clutches and just kind of crazy situations, and maybe he's also the person to put on the Montaigne to be able to quickly flick the shield in the way of someone flanking him or something. But that doesn't feel like it's that hard to be able to do. So
I mean, you say that, but we never see Monty clutches unless your name is Geonidas.
True,
then apparently it's pretty doable. So, I mean, maybe Vertical's the next one to have his number raised into the rafters here inside of NA for Monty clutches. But we have to see. Could be at the end of round 6. Could have a spicy one coming very, very soon. And speaking of spice, J9O is going to choose the spice of life as he's going for quick angle here out towards Cash Balcony. They know he's playing around the area, so they shouldn't be too worried about it, at least with the info game working in their favor at the current moment.
Oh, God. Iconic, a direct challenge. Beautifully played here by Iconic to take out Newers and shut down the Finka right at the beginning of the round. Here he's even going to try to block off the barricade yet again, although I think that's actually going to end up either missing or getting shot out pretty much immediately. The hop in there from Laxing. He makes it past Iconic with a good flash landing on top of him, trades it back out, and brings it down to a 4v4.
Flash landing, more like clash, or oh my goodness gracious, how dare I mess that up? Crash landing. Yeah. What happens when your brain gets ahead of your mouth, folks? Let me tell you. But past that, speaking of getting ahead, Oxygen been doing a pretty bang-up job of that. Iconic, making kind of an audible when it comes down to playing the top of Dragon Stairs. I believe we had DP Fire here before, but instead wanted to be the one that plays out that situation. He'll beg Newers, but that's where it stops. And now Oxygen have been allowed to push up towards Yellow Hall. Vertical getting a lot of information from the single panel here for the office vault. As we'll see, I do believe one player start to transition down the hallway away from him. The remaining members of Oxygen will get themselves inside of initiation and start looking to break up this wall with Fox A. Just got to get rid of that mute jammer.
Yep.
And there we go.
I'll pop it right open here. Oxygen will have their path forward opened up into the site, but at the same time, Astralis is here, ready to fend off that very same challenge, but they have the player power to do so. That'll become the next question here, as the challenge has indeed reached the site. That'll pull back some of these smaller extensions we got from a few of the Astralis members too. And while yes, Oxygen does have access, unfortunately, Astralis also had a fallback plan to counter out this push that we're now going to see from Vertical and to some extent Dream 2 to try to line up the entry. Vertical gets ahead in his vision, tries to go for the shot against it, but there's too quick of a reaction from J9O. He's able to counter it out, take him down, even out the numbers here for Oxygen as well. Only 3 seconds left. Someone's going to try to put this case down onto the ground, and it is going to be Dream, but all for naught. Shuttle shuts it out, and a second round for Astralis is finally found at the end of the half.
A much stronger stance from Astralis there, as they're finally able to get another defensive round after they're going to go back to bunk and daycare. And overall, very, very successful, especially for Iconic here early on, as he's able to get it down to just about halftime, and all at the expense of taking down Newers, which is a huge piece of Oxygen's puzzle. In fact, Newers being the #1 rated player in all of North America right now, and past that, having the best KD spread as well. So if you're able to hamper Oxygen by taking away the best North American player at the current moment, that's probably probably going to bode pretty well for you.
So Oxygen with the lead coming off of the first half here, and now going to immediately fall into a throne room defense to give us our first round of the second half. Newers will be going on to the Legion, so expect some delay capability to roll out from this squad as they try to slow down the overall pacing from Astralis. The same thing will be brought out by Laxing also on the cap can there. Both teams playing heavily into the attempt to delay out the roam clear in hopes of leaving the attackers with too low of a time to be able to properly execute.
Well, now that we've switched things over for both of these teams respectively, Oxygen will be headed downstairs, wouldn't you know it, for an Armory Throne defense as their very first defensive side on their end. Definitely something that we would expect to see, as well as the Legion going out to try and find some drones out on the cash balcony. Newers will get nothing, though, initially. Astralis' lineup will be looking to clear out the map, and it's going to actually work quite well up against Oxygen's lineup, obviously, if the gunfights favor them. But from a utility point of view, they definitely have what it takes to be able to break up a lot of the overall setup of OXGs. They're actually going to start working their way back down to the base floor here via Dragon Stairs, all because Astralis is already starting to find some holes over to the top of cash as well as security. We actually have Newers here over, I believe, inside of security at the current moment, which could give Astralis some gray hairs. We'll just have to see. Oxygen have a lot going on this setup with so many players off of the site at the current moment that'll make your head spin, and Astralis really has to try and keep a beat on this.
Laxing back over towards the first floor, 90. Well, he attempts to wait out the potential drop from Astralis if they're going to be so bold to go for it. More than likely not, of course. Still have plenty of time to see this team play into it, so Oxygen just trying to peek out for a second there, see if maybe they could get lucky with an angle of their own, but ultimately not going to be able to find it. However, the second floor pressure has been dealt with fairly early on into the rounds, and now it's all up to Astralis and how quickly they can make this transition down onto the first to be able to win out this round here. Jane, I know as well, even has one of the players locked down on the outside of Lab, but unfortunately doesn't have an angle into that corner just yet. So they have the player in a box, but they don't have any way to smash it just yet. Shuttle, though, I think is going to be approaching this area soon to be looking for an opportunity to do that.
Jane, I know, flirting with death at the current moment. Could say that for either one of these players, as Vertical was looking outside for a split second, but falls back just a little bit. Knows one's inside of Lab at the current moment as he backs out of storage, but he gets taken down from Yellow instead as DP Fire is waiting for him on Yellow. A nice opening frag, but Oxygen have delayed quite a bit of time. On a second glance here as well. There's only 40 seconds remain after Vertical gets taken down. Nitro Cell out, but it's not going to claim any of the Astralis lives. Foxay is going to have to try and make a stand here with no Nitro Cell, the center pillar of Armory.
Iconic striking again against the Oxygen lineup here. Finally, Noor's going to be able to get something back, and Laxing with 2 more as well. Seemingly out of nowhere for Laxing's kills. That's left Astralis down to only Shuttle and Jane I know to try and somehow clutch this out. And Laxing, he's not stopping. He's got another kill for himself too. Let's see if he can get one more. And Shuttle's taking some heat also. Shuttle doesn't even know how to play this out now. He's got nowhere to go. No safe harbor to dock the ship into. He'll push himself forward. He's got an Evil Eye popping some shots off at him here. Trying to get it to open, but no, the time is ultimately going to run out, and Oxygen will take their control back immediately at the start of the second half, pushing themselves up on a 5 round. Just 2 more to go, and the map is theirs.
Oh, Redeemer's got to be so happy about how that site setup went. Laxing with the biggest 2K of this entire match so far as he shuts down Astralis at the gates, trying to work their way into Armory. And now for Astralis' sake, you really got to consider what your next move is. And, well, actually, that's exactly what they're going to do. Yep. I do believe that we ended up getting a timeout. And yes, Forrest indeed did take that. So it's an Astralis timeout as they try to go back to the drawing board and figure out how they're going to reconcile with a 3-round advantage in the pocket of Oxygen.
We'll see, have to see how they figure that out. Is, like you said, massive deficit now put in front of this team, and they've been thrusted onto the attacking side now as well, so no longer have control over the pacing of the round. They can't play passively to try to speed up their opponents. They can't play aggressively to try to slow them down. It's all into them countering out their opponents' moves instead, so they try to figure out some way to get a grasp. And the worst part is they don't even necessarily know what move Oxygen is going to make next. From a site choice to the way they play this strategy, it's all just general adaptations that Astralis have to make in hopes that it becomes relevant in this upcoming round, which is getting started now. So let's hop back in game and take a peek at that.
Yeah. You really, really have to be hopeful for Astralis that they're able to get things done in this next round, because if not, I mean, it's all doom and gloom from that moment on. You're moments away from Oxygen opening back up Armory, as well as just being one of the strongest teams when it comes to theme park is always going to leave a pretty bad taste in your mouth when you're at such a disadvantage at the current moment. So Astralis passed the timeout, are ready to try and reconcile with this. Not too much of a change up when it comes to Astralis' lineup. In fact, they're just dropping the Jackal, and now they're actually bringing in the Thatcher to try and help with some of these hard-to-reach electronics, maybe some of these walls. There's a bunch of different things you can try and implement a Thatcher for, but past that, we're going to have J90 onto the Twitch here to see if we can get some action with the F2.
Follow him along closely to see if anything will come out from that over the course of this round. Away from that, though, Oxygen holding all the extremities, trying to prevent any action from working out here for the Astralis camp. As I said, over at areas like Dragon and Control to make sure that Astralis will be denied if they try to hop in here without checking things out first and using some utility to mitigate the setup from OXG. It'll work out as they'll push back at least some of this initial positioning further towards Cash Room here, and eventually we'll see them have to move back even further back from that position. But Astralis not with too much of a focus on this early clear, instead optimizing their intel over here towards the hatch drop into Control, which will probably become the staging ground for this team. And they'll move forward from that. That'll potentially put a lot of pressure on Laxing too, if this kind of becomes the position where we're going to see Astralis try to storm into and get an execute rolling.
Well, honestly, not the worst situation for Oxygen to be presented, because a lot of their setup does actually point towards this side. They ended up putting up some soft barricades just in case Astralis does try and transition later on into the round and take this side of the map, kind of similar to how we saw Oxygen go for initiation, where they waited for a majority of the round inside a cafe and then immediately adjusted over into cash and as well as security, and ended up throwing it into initiation with the Candelas of Foxay. So this is basically going to slow that down just a little bit, because obviously Oxygen's going to have a read on Astralis arriving to these shores as they have to break up some of these barricades. And as of right now, Astralis not exactly lost, but trying to figure out what the next move is, as they're already halfway through the round. They started things out on the cash balcony, but have decided, hey, maybe this isn't the greatest idea.
So once again, another shift of strategy coming a little bit late into the round. We saw one of these from Oxygen, though, and it worked out perfectly fine for them, despite how much we critiqued it. Time to see if Astralis could pull something out a little bit earlier than we saw from Oxygen to try and change up their own fate, get some better aggression working to try and insert themselves into this site. Oxygen more than ready for the challenge as they continue to sit back and wait for the real first move from Astralis here. And it's going to be a swing and attempting to take control of Break Room first and then move forward from there. It'll work out to get them into Break Room, and J90, he executes in from the cafe side at the exact same time. Works out beautifully so far for Astralis. Laxing trying to counter this back out, but he's going to be reliant on Foxay upstairs now as he's had to drop down through the hatch. Full control, though, for Astralis inside of the site. Shouldn't be much holding them up for a play any longer, as Foxay is trying to push back in from elsewhere on the map, moving in from Dragon side instead.
Foxay, inside of initiation, there's literally zero chance that he stops this plant at the current moment. And also more than likely means going into this post plant that Astralis are going to have the crosses when it comes to setting up things, when it comes to stairwells and getting back into the site, and that's exactly what's going to happen. J90 takes down Laxing, trying to transition through arcade stairs, and now Foxay out in the center hallway should be dead to rights here momentarily from DP Fire, and that's exactly how it works out. He'll at least get the site player, but doesn't mean all that much for Oxygen's camp at the end of the day. Astralis able to make a very serious adjustment inside of the mid-round and find a very similar round to what we saw from Oxygen on their initiation offense. So happy about that one, but they still have a long road ahead of them. Fortunately enough, we're going to a site for Oxygen's sake that they actually were very successful on grasping a hold of when it came to their offensive side. So maybe Astralis will be able to do the exact same. And if they can, then there's a potential for us to be tied up at 5-5.
A beautiful pinch from Astralis there, especially considering it was kind of an audible call to move over towards that later on in the round. Wasn't the initial intention, but still managed to make it work quite swimmingly, as OXG just could not fend off against the sudden power against them, not only from Break Room side, but from Cafe pinching them out. Also, time to see now if Oxygen can quickly rebound from that and be able to maintain their lead, keep it in the same position by trading out these rounds and getting their 6th onto the board. The second to last one they would need as well to close down this game, but meanwhile for Astralis, they're keeping everything pretty much the same as far as operator lineups are concerned. Pretty heavy emphasis on the intel game still, with both the Dokkaebi as well as the Jackal.
There it is.
Was the Jackal being brought in, but that's now been swapped out. Or towards a different operator here. The Zofia will be brought in instead.
I expected J9O to switch things up, just given the circumstances of the last round. We saw him move away from the Jackal and pick up the Twitch, and this time it'll be the Zofia. Really, really liking Zofia's pick just overall when it comes to Siege at the current moment. She's been so strong for such a long time, and she continues to be as the LMG meta continues to rage on. And even past that, still has a really solid rifle, so when those come back into metal, she'll more than likely still be here and still be fragging. So now I'll be able to open up the lab window, or rather storage window, as they do have that laser gated off, so might have to give up a piece of utility later on if they do want to try and get in via that space. So with the first 45 seconds off the board, Astralis have actually found some safe haven over towards the east side of the map. The shuttle's gotten himself inside of security. This will allow DP fighters to start pressuring things over on the cache side as long as they've already cleared this out.
Astralis still ready to continue moving forward here, and Oxygen doesn't really want the challenge this time. They're sticking things a lot further back, trying to play into the kind of vertical cone that is near their site, and not expressing too much interest in map control beyond that, as they don't feel it's necessary in this situation here. Initiation already worked on being cleared out here by Astralis, and in the process of dropping, well, they're going to execute the two upstairs holds from OXG. That's Laxing and Vertical, dead to rights. Foxe next up on the block, as they just can't seem to get anything going to surprise out these Astralis clears as they're shutting down OXG, seemingly without too much of an issue. Dream and Newers now have to clutch out a 2v5 as they're the only players left, and even worse, Newers isn't even in the site right now. He's trying to play across.
Yeah, and this could be a huge issue because Astralis is going to check this. Yep. There's no other place to check, Newers. I'm sorry, you're not that sneaky. It's just how it goes sometimes. Astralis is transitioning into this bottom floor, so they have to check all of this just to make sure there's no one trying to sneak past them exactly like Newers. So they'll know his positioning now and know that he's more than likely playing around this split space. He does still have some opportunity here to get some very influential kills as his timer continues to dwindle. And with that timer dwindling, that means that later on these do come, the more they're going to impact the round. There's some big potential there from Dream, but he misses all of his shots, and it's now left up to Newers. The young gun and potential rookie of the year gets bodied as he re-entries into the site. It's a flawless round for Astralis as they bring the lead down to 1 for Oxygen.
Yep, things start to look a little bit bleaker here for Oxygen, as not only is the early game failing to make its own impact, but as well we're seeing these site holds lead into really not a whole lot of countering to the executes that are coming in from Astralis. 2 rounds in a row now that they've been able to work their way through the setup with relatively little issue. In fact, this most recent round being completely flawless for the squad as they find a 4th round for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, for Oxygen at the current moment, it's pretty difficult to try and get around over on Astralis just because of how decisive they are as a unit. That's the big issue. You know, you're trying to fight back an entire team with, you know, maybe 2 people in a certain instance when it's the entirety of the Astralis roster that's bearing down on your location. Or, you know, instead of the last round, maybe it's just Iconic with a frag grenade and an LMG, and sometimes that's all you need. Oxygen aren't able to negotiate for anything on that top floor, and that's why more than likely we saw this tactical timeout come out. They need to talk about this and see how they're going to get around past Armory Throne Room. So they're not really talking about what's going on inside of this round. The conversation that just went on, it was, okay, hey, go to Armory Throne, and then for the next site, this is what we're going to do. What we need to do is this, that, and the third, and obviously we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but this round should be a fairly straightforward affair for Oxygen as they look to try and claim their 6 and at least guarantee overtime.
See though if they can even get that far. Astralis doing a fantastic job of limiting the potential options for the Oxygen roster inside of those first 2 minutes of play, and then making it so the actual site hold defense is going to be a little bit weaker towards the end of the rounds. We'll see if Oxygen still try to play out that extended game in hopes of kind of knocking down the Astralis attack a peg or 2. Oxygen will have to be careful to make sure that in the process of doing that, they don't play themselves out and leave themselves with too little to defend the throne room when we come down to that final minute or 45 seconds where Astralis need to execute into it. Speaking of which, we've got Astralis spawned out on the board. And we do have quite a bit of an extension from Oxygen playing out. Once again, no surprise over here on Dragon's side, pretty heftily with a few extensions also over towards Lab. In fact, they're really spread out right now, trying to deny pretty much every opening opportunity that Astralis might want to try and go for here.
Well, our starting feels bad, man, is no sledge for Astralis, given the circumstances of Newers playing over towards the top of Dragon. So all of his Kiba barriers are going to be able to stick around a little while longer, as everybody's going to have to punch those things 3 times or blow them up with a frag grenade. But obviously, you don't want to do that, as Iconic is the only one wielding those things. So their value, well, it's just gone up a whole lot. It's kind of like stocks, right? The less you have, the more it's actually worth. And the less life you have in your body, the, well, less it's going to be worth and valuable over towards that part of the map. As Newers goes down to the top of Dragon, this is going to open up literally everything for Astralis. Vertical is the only one awaiting in the wings at the current moment. But fortunately, there's a Laxing about as he'll take down J90 somewhere inside of the map. That's a Jackal off the board as Forrest continues trying to work his way through initiation.
Forrest continuing to kind of surf his way through the setup from Oxygen at the moment. Going to run into a bit of a pretty hefty wave here, though, as he reaches the waiting room area. As there's an also pretty hefty force from Oxygen waiting on the other side, both stacked inside of the bathrooms, and I think one more waits over towards office side here. We can see Foxy waiting inside of the stalls, Vertical back in the office position here. Forrest not being gifted the peek up until I mention it, of course, and then Foxy obliges quite kindly there. Steps right out, gives Forrest another pick, and once again, Astralis are making mincemeat of this opening extension from OXG, giving them a much easier time to work their way into the site due to the fact they always seemingly have a +1 or more numbers advantage here.
I'm loving this from Vertical. Him behind the minibar inside of office. Hasn't been droned yet. With this timer so low, Astralis might just go fully for default here. They'll stop droning, they'll start trying to open things up, and this is going to allow Vertical a lot of area to work with, a lot of room to breathe, and the potential to flank out the remaining members of Astralis and deal the death blow to the squad. Giving Oxygen that 6th round they want so badly as of right now. Stun grenades in, he'll blind out Dream. Laxing will swing in from split, and he'll take down one, so he'll be able to at least stop one from being able to take out the back player. Forrest will fire back, but Iconic's been downed. He's just got to await him and see if he can potentially get himself up with the Adrenal Surge. The case is on Forrest, so he should be able to get rid of this BP and start trying to plant. It really depends here. Don't know if Iconic was out of utility either. And actually, oh my god, no!
The EDDs.
Not like this. The EDD takes him out as he walks into split. And that's like what we were talking about earlier when it comes to theme. When it gets down to that low time, the last thing you're going to be doing is looking at your ankles to see where those EDDs are. And, well, it rears its ugly head, taking him down and giving Oxygen that 6th round, although it looked like Astralis had a very good opportunity to try and take that.
Like Laxing, like thanking a higher power there for a second too, as he's like, thanks for that. Looking up real quick to shut everything down at the end of that round as his opponent makes a fatal mistake of stepping into those EDDs. That's exactly why you bring Capcan, by the way, is for situations like this, when a player is stuck inside of a clutch scenario. The last thing they are thinking about is, let me check this like 2/3 down the wall position on this door every time I clear a door, because they're worried about so many other things at that point. It just falls so far to the back of your psyche that you make that momentary lapse in judgment. Unfortunately, though, at the cost of your own life.
Man, it's such a good thing that I picked Oxygen, right? I mean, like, come on. Like, no, I can't switch it now.
No, it's not good.
Man.
It's stuck in the Discord already.
Well, listen, guys. Astralis, you got to do something here. My picks have been going so well today. SSG kind of messed with me a little bit in the first one. I was like, oh, we can go for at least 80% today, right? Well, that's not really working out for me, is it? So Astralis still with an opportunity to at least get us to overtime, but Oxygen have looked so dynamic when it comes to their defensive end, and they're going to be back into bunker as well as daycare to try and get this last round over on AST. And speaking of them, they've made some adjustments to their lineup. Shuttle will be bringing in the Maverick, and now J9 is occupying the grounds of Flores.
One more round is all that is needed for Oxygen here, but they're going to need to still improve their defensive stances. Let's be real about this. Astralis have been shutting down, especially the early parts of these rounds, with virtually zero response showing up from Oxygen, save for, of course, the 2 rounds they've been able to negotiate over down in Throne Room there. Well, the first one was a more confident showing. The second one had the same problems as all the other sites that Oxygen has tried to play into, only winning it because of well-placed utility at the end of the round. So this time, once more, they need to get their defensive setup ready to challenge these aggressive swings from Forrest and the rest of Astralis, but just like every other round in this half, it's not the case, and Astralis take control of the opening duel yet again.
Oh, I'm absolutely loving this from Astralis. Forrest is going to be able to get open part of the initiation wall, but they're immediately going to drop off and start adjusting over things like the kitchen rappel and, you know, starting to get some pressure around the top of Arcade. This is all stuff that you're looking to do when it comes to this site because it limits Oxygen's potential to rotate through to these other sites and, you know, try and get out and challenge you around that Arcade area. So Astralis will continue to do the dirty work and clean things up, getting rid of proximity sensors and everything everything else in between. But they don't have too much info game on what's going on the site currently right now. They just know that the majority of Oxygen members are around the area. And that's all they really need. They just need to get rid of the utility that's holding them back from actually entering, and then they can start looking to capitalize on some of their info game later on.
Shuttle Force back here as a Toxic Babe stems the tides. Thankfully, again, we've got a Finka in the mix for the attack, so it's not too big of a deal. Nades are in, and they try to follow the spray through it. Then a second nade is going to come out pretty quickly as well. Forrest has got to be careful to make sure he doesn't get too close to that nade. Thankfully, it works out, but at the same time, the defense is getting some training results going into their favor. Not a whole lot, though, as Astralis still takes control of the site, and the defense is left down to only Vert and Norse. Vert equalizes things, though, with an important pickup, but Forrest on his third kill. No, it won't be enough from the defense, as the Astralis roster is still able to trade their way into a victory after a very chaotic team fight.
6-5, and Oxygen do not have Armory Throne available to them. They have to try and go for a different site. What's it going to be? Well, this time it's going to be Lab Storage, which actually ended up going pretty well for both of these squads, at least initially. Astralis taken a little while to clear, but at the end of the day, it was Iconic that popped off, dropping from the hatch and able to decimate the top hold. And then, obviously, able to claim the round off the back of that. Oxygen at least gotten their 2 throwing rounds that they needed so far on this defensive end, but Astralis is quickly making this look like this is going to be an overtime game. No real change-up when it comes to their lineup on offense either. J9O will be back towards the Jackal. Oxygen are bringing their lineup that we saw the last time they were inside of this area. We are going to have Newers onto the Legion this time around, though. I do believe he was on something a little bit different when he was playing inside of Barrels, but it's neither here nor there. He'll still more than likely be in the same position, as it's just a lot of trap utility and things intended to slow down the Astralis take here. Not only on the site, but also through the majority of the map with reinforcements and everything between going down on this top floor.
So we got Astralis out for the last regulation round they'll be able to play into here. Just need to follow through on what's been working well for them pretty much this entire half. These kind of stunning clears they go for inside of the early round to give them the player advantage, and then as well a booming follow-up into the site to trade their way towards a win. The strategy's been working for them essentially throughout the entire half, with 2 exceptions down in the throne rooms, and one of them that realistically probably should have still gone to Astralis had certain utility not been in position here. So for Astralis now, do or die time indeed, but oftentimes being pushed into these types of scenarios can push a team out of the zone into a situation where they're going to end up making mistakes. So Astralis has to be very careful to make sure they're able to follow this round through in the same way they've been doing in the past. Fairly slow, though, to use this first minute, as they're mainly just going to gather intel. We won't see much resistance come out at the same time from the Oxygen camp either, though.
Yeah, so starting to build up to a very similar situation we saw the last time, where Iconic burst through the door and took out 2. Got some info on this top floor now. Newers in vertical, playing around Arcade for some time. Foxay in tow, back for Bunker. Be worried about the reinforced wall there for initiation that Forrest could put a brand new hole in if he so chooses. Astralis lining themselves up across the entirety of this top floor. DP Fire is going to add a call to the list as Iconic goes down to Foxay. He's going to jump over the Arcade balcony, but Shuttle's got one, can't get the second as Newers runs down the staircase and keeps this live in the bottom of Arcade.
So still down to a 4v4. Neither team takes an edge here. Oxygen getting a little bit shaky as we see Laxing starting to peek out into that main hallway over towards Dragon's side to try and isolate out options to see if anyone from Astralis might have been peeking out. Cam access is going to be given over to the attackers, although most of the defaults have probably been knocked out. What they might be able to see, though, is going to be those bulletproofs that'll be set up inside of the site. That could be a big key piece of intel that Oxygen will certainly have to try and mitigate in some way, whether that means taking out their own utility in the form of those bulletproof cameras or something else. Either way, though, you can see Oxygen actually spreading themselves out quite heavily instead of falling further back onto the site setup, with 2 players now extending out from the stalls area.
Well, J9O is going to adjust himself over towards Drug Window. hold this down and make sure none of the auction members can try and rotate across the back end of this. Force is going to hop inside of stalls, and this is where things are going to start to get very weird for him. He'll take down Lax, and he knows one's behind this deployable shield, but this could be it. That's the case down. Dream won't be able to transition into the second kill, though, and now J90 and the remaining members of Astralis have to go and retrieve this case. But with 6 seconds remaining, they have to get more than that done, as Newers with a fantastic shot. It's all down to Shuttle, and that's going to be all she wrote. Oxygen close it out if they take down the Lone Soul, holding the diffuser inside of stalls. What a great defensive end from them, and showing exactly why they're the best team in North America on Theme Park.
Absolutely the case here. Not an awful game for Astralis either at the end of the day. Yeah, they failed to replicate the results from earlier in the half in this final round, but it's all built up upon still a very stellar attacking side this team falls just a little bit short on in the end, as they fail to close out the final round that would have put this into OT. OXG take the control that they need for themselves off of those two fairly controlled throne room defenses, and one final one here on the inside of Lab. It comes to the bitter end, but it does go the way of Oxygen as they take today's match, and a full 3 points along with it as they close it down in the final round of regulation.
Yes, indeed. A hotly contested game, but it doesn't require overtime. Astralis is definitely going to want to go back and look at some of those Lab storage defenses, as that's really the straw that broke the camel's back at the end of the day when it came to the rounds. So big things there for them to talk about, but obviously Astralis more than likely good for it, as this team has been able to find success time and time again throughout the year, and don't really have to worry too much about them bouncing back at the current moment. Haven't seen anything too detrimental. But with that being said, that's going to do it for the second to last game of the day, folks. But don't go anywhere. I have an analyst desk here in just a couple of moments, so don't touch that browser.
We are back once again here at the Rainbow Six North American League Analyst Desk. Doa, Jesse, Jacob, Joe here with you, and we just saw Oxygen manage to do it in regulation against Astralis. Now, Astralis is coming back on the attacking side of things in a big way. We thought maybe there's going to be yet another game that goes to overtime. We've had so many of them this stage, and Oxygen has won 2 of those. So it wouldn't be too surprising to see it happen, but they got it done.
Forrest almost made that happen. Forrest almost pulled it back, but didn't quite do it. Oxygen, that lead at the start was so strong.
Yeah. Well, we got Dream standing by in Las Vegas to chat with us a little bit about it. Dream, when it was getting to the point where Astralis was starting to come back a little bit, did the thought go through your mind, oh no, another overtime game a little bit? Or what were you thinking when that started happening?
Not really. I normally don't really look at the score. It's kind of like 0-0 every round for myself.
Okay.
I don't know about my teammates, what was going through their head, but yeah, personally for me, it's just like 0-0 every round. It's a new round. Doesn't matter what happened last, and just you like reset going into the next one.
Fair enough.
We didn't get to talk to you after your last win yesterday against Mirage either, and that game started off a little bit rough for you guys. Can you talk all the way back then about what went wrong kind of at the start of that game and how you were able to bounce back?
I think over those 3 rounds, we kind of noticed that our ego got like ahead of us a little bit. We were doing things solo and like not as a team. Like we were just saying, oh, they're Mirage and like just peeking when we definitely should have been. And we kind of slowed it down after round 3. We like talked to ourselves and like, guys, we just need to reset. Like, let's go into this new round. Let's do what we do. Let's play our game. Let's stop over peeking, doing all the extra stuff, and just play how we play. And then we won like every round after that. So.
You guys put yourselves at 13 points now, which I believe puts you in first place. So I wanted to ask you, what would it mean to make it back to the major and attend Berlin?
Well, to me personally, it would mean everything. I mean, this is what I worked for like years, and I finally got to my last major last stage. And if we get to make it again this stage, it kind of just proves that like all the work I put in is like worth it, and like I'm doing great, and like just keep up the hard work. And I love this group of guys. I love playing with them. This is the best team I've ever been on, and I'm just happy we can like show out and prove everybody that we're one of the best.
So because the NAL has 2 play days per week, it's all best of ones. It's the same idea week in, week out until you get to the very last week where it's just the 1 play day. Is it a super grueling grind every week to then play 1 game, come back, play another one, and have to shift gears between 2 different teams? Or is it kind of an easier thing because you only have 2 maps a week to worry about?
I think our coaches put in a lot of prep, so it makes it like really easy for us. We kind of know what maps we like are going to play against certain teams, like a week. Sometimes they know sooner, like 2 weeks in advance, what maps we're going to go to against these teams. And like the week prior, like right after, so like after today, tomorrow, we're just going to be prepping for the next 2 teams we play, which I think is DZ and SSG. And we probably already like have it down to like the 3 maps we want to play. We just grind out those maps, work on those, and then play those guys. It's really easy.
So your coaches always know what maps are going to get played, but can you explain why so many teams in this league keep bringing you to theme park?
Yeah, I'm not sure why. We're really comfortable on that map, obviously, and they just keep going. Like they think they can counter strat and beat us, but it's like literally our best map. Like you should probably stop doing that and just ban it. I'm getting bored playing it, guys. Come on, this is something else.
Maybe somebody will figure it out eventually. Who knows? But until then, we enjoy watching you guys play on it at least. But thanks for taking the time to stop by and chat with us a little bit. Good luck next week, and good luck with all the prep for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right, so Dream from Team Oxygen getting the win over Astralis with the rest of his teammates. 7-5 was the score. Nearly went to OT again, but we didn't need it this time around. Astralis, you look at the scoreline there, and unfortunately, you see Iconic down at 5-10 again. We were talking about this a little bit while we were watching it, Jesse. You were saying he might have his first negative scoreline ever in a stage.
Yeah, this is the 7th stage in the NAL. We highlighted this yesterday, and he had a good game yesterday. So we thought, okay, never mind. Iconic's back on track. And then today, it just wasn't really working out for him. I think he was still playing a lot of those aggressive roam positions with some of that really really important utility. I thought he did better. You know, there was that one Azami round where he was playing super aggressive top of Dragon Stairs, and he actually delayed a lot of time. I thought that was a hugely impactful round, so I want to see more of rounds like that. It was just unfortunate how many times he was just not finding that success, not finding that value when he was out on the roam on defense.
So on that negative stage point, as of this game, he's only -5.
Okay,
Which, given the
that's
fact
not
that
bad.
usually he's like in the plus 20, plus 30 sometimes category, especially for last stage and during the major, that doesn't seem like an insurmountable task to get over for the last 3 games.
No, that's totally fine.
Yeah, needs to have more games like yesterday though, and less games like today. I think in order to make that happen. But you know, we talked about Oxygen just being like the total package team. I like to use that phrase with them, and I feel like we really saw that out of them today, where everyone was stepping up, everyone was kind of making plays when they were called upon to do that. And I think that's a good transition to talking about some of the specific rounds from this last map. The first one we're going to talk about is round number 7, and this is one where Laxing just had really good individual movement to put himself in the position he needed to be to make some plays like that.
Sometimes Laxing just gets called a rat, and I think this is one of those plays, but it's a smart rat play because look how many drones Astralis have left. Top left side of your screen, 2 drones and 1's in a pocket. Astralis have no intel left, and Laxing hiding in the site around a corner that you don't expect players to be in that position, gets 2 big kills, then we'll find a 3rd towards the end here. Thought it was a beautiful little play from Laxing to start off this, execute on the side of Oxygen, start off this defensive half as well. Eventually, Shuttle in the 1v3 has a really tough time closing it out, as anybody would. So I thought that, you know, that just highlights what Laxing does better than anybody else in this league.
He's just the drone whisperer, man. He gets away with it every time. How? How does he keep getting away with it?
We can ask that about his entire career, and we might be able to do it. Yeah, that man keeps adapting around every different meta that gets put in front of him, and is still a defensive menace. It's crazy.
Got that 6th sense, absolutely. Well, it is time to start talking about round number 10, because you know what? It's just kind of a fun thing when Capcam's in there. Sometimes you check the doorways, but sometimes you don't check all of them, and you really should. You really should.
Joe and I were playing ranked literally last weekend, and I did this exact same thing. And so the fact that now we've seen Forrest do it too makes me feel a little bit more vindicated.
I don't remember it working out as well though for you, unfortunately.
What do you mean working out as well?
Did you die on stream to this, man?
No, I died. It was the same situation, 1v1. Ended up losing it, but listen, we lost that game. Astralis lost this game. It worked out the same.
Every player on Oxygen was helping out, and even the environment was helping out on this one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is why you don't take Oakshita theme park. This is why. They've booby-trapped the entire map. You can't get into it and attack effectively, and they have LMGs. So stop bringing Oakshita theme park. I think everyone's learned their lesson so far.
You know, it's like Dream said, though. Everyone thinks they can counter-strat them. Maybe somebody can, but no one's been able to do it so far. So, you know, take that into account when you're thinking about your map bans down the line with the rest of the teams in the NAL. We got 2 more teams in the NAL to play today. It's going to be Mirage versus Beast Coast. Now, again, like a lot of people, getting their 3 points from Mirage this stage. But remember, Beast Coast underestimated Mirage in stage number 1 and paid for it with a spot lost in the Charlotte Majors. So you know they're coming back with a vengeance here in stage number 2. Let's see what they can put together when we come back for our final map of the day. Don't go anywhere. We'll return in a moment.